صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. We are continuing with our lecture on women around the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is a very important topic, especially in today's world where we're trying to understand the position of women and the nature of women in the world with feminism and all these issues that are happening around the world. Women changing, being changed, a lot of fitna. We're trying to look at these sahabiyat, these women who spend time with the greatest creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the greatest al-muallim, coach, the teacher, the one and only Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So we talked about Khadija last time, and we talked about the girls of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Zainab, Ruqayya, Kulthum, Fatima. Right, I asked you which were the ones who were married to Uthman radiallahu anhu. Does anyone know? There are two of them from the four mentioned, right? Anyone who can text? Who were the two that were married to Uthman radiallahu anhu?
Ruqayya and Kulthum.
Yeah, exactly. So it's Ruqayya and Kulthum. They were married to Uthman radiallahu anhu. Okay, this is very important to the Shia who are accusing Uthman or this and that and saying that he was a bad man. And this would mean that the Prophet made a mistake in giving his daughters to Uthman. Did he not understand? Did he not know? Did he not receive revelation? Did he not? And it's unthinkable. Uthman was amazing, was an amazing man. Of course, everyone has issues, no doubt. We know that Uthman became quite hard in some things. We talked about certain nepotism and this and that. Right, we discussed this for those who attended Al-Awasim and Al-Qawasim, Defense Against Disaster, Ibn al-Arabi's book. And we discussed this. Yeah. So we talked about that, right? How Khadija radiallahu anha, what an amazing person she was. And I was going through a statement today, a statement of that behind every strong man, there is a woman, or behind every successful man, there is a woman. Indeed, it's so true, because not only is it about, okay, the woman being there for and helping him in success, but it's, even behind, the concept of that behind him, because behind is a symbol of support, right? The statement doesn't say, it's someone in front of him pulling him. No, it's behind him pushing him. It's behind him supporting him. And Khadija was a support. A woman is always a support for the man, not a leader for the man, not a guiding force for the man. The man is a guiding force for the woman. That's how Allah made it. That's how Allah gave the man the title Qawwam and Khalifa and so on. So, but it's so important, because women, they hate it now. They hate to be told, oh, I'm behind the man, I should walk behind him. No, it's not about walking behind him. It's about that you're not on the same par. You're not meant to be. But how important that behind role is just amazing. And it was super exemplified in Khadija radiallahu anha, that indeed behind every strong, successful man, there's a strong woman. And that strong and strength of a woman is not exemplified in her muscles, or that she does karate or something like boxing, like women do these days, and go around behaving like men and try to be all masculine. No, it's about her strength is in that support, that sabr, that encouragement, that the ability for a man to lay his head on her and to get that love, that feminine energy, that is just it's like water that puts off fire. It's like the most amazing thing that a man can come home to, is that kind and loving and soft and supporting energy from a woman who just tell him, it's okay, I know you had a hard day, don't worry, inshallah. I made you a meal and let's just lay down and cuddle and talk to me and tell me about stuff, right? As opposed to her just complaining what she saw on TikTok or what her friend did or her cousin and her mother. And she saw this thing in the serial that she was watching on Netflix and how it upset her and how her friend was talking bad about her. And her mom said this and her sister that. And, no, that's not what the man wants to hear. But, he loves to hear just about, okay, how her day was and stuff. But the woman has this ability to absorb that negative energy and to just kind of calm the man down, if she knows how to use that. And I believe that's the strength of Khadija radiallahu anha, as we can see when he came back from Gharu Hira, when he received the first revelation, which is a strong trauma and a very difficult thing for the Prophet ﷺ, and how she behaved, how she calmed him down, the words that she used. And it's just beautiful. Who can argue with that? Right? So yeah. So the Prophet ﷺ, he was made of seclusion by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Something that he wanted to pull himself away from the materialistic world. It was something that he would do, and that would lead to his elevation of his soul. And he would go to Gharu Hira, and he would spend time there until he was prepared to receive the nubuwah, the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Right, this is how the Prophet ﷺ was. So we know that Khadija radiallahu anha was supporting that. The Prophet ﷺ used to visit Gharu Hira on the mountain of mercy, Jabal Rahman, Jabal Nur, and he would take food and drink that Khadija would prepare for him. He would spend nights and days there, especially in the month of Ramadan. But we know that one day he returned with this news, which was Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم. Right? So this is what the Prophet ﷺ received. We know the story. We know, what happened, and we know how Khadija reacted to this great news. Right? Can we move down? So the first thing that she did is she believed in him. So there's no doubt that the first contact that the Prophet ﷺ most likely had with after revelation was Khadija. Okay, there's a discussion in the ulama whether Ali was the first to believe or Khadija. I do believe that all or most of the evidence indicate Khadija, and it makes sense as well because the Prophet ﷺ went to her, like he was upset and he went to her first. Right? He was seeking that comfort, again, that feminine energy that is so rare these days. Right? So she believed in him. Okay. She actually, and this is consensus of the historians, as we said, that she believed in him. Now, question is here, interesting question, very interesting question. That was the acceptance of Islam and her faith done just to follow her husband, so their relation could continue, or was it done for noble and sublime reasons that transcend this materialistic and sentimental meaning? Wallahi, before we even go and see what the author says, what do you think? Because it's a very good question. Islamically, can a woman just follow her husband just because to keep the peace and to just follow him for the sake of the relation? Can she do that? What do you think? Before we go and see what the author says. What do you think? Anyone? You can type. So can a woman just follow her husband and that's it? Like it's not like a real spiritual decision. It's just, okay, my husband is saying this, khalas, I'll just do it. So the Khadija, did she really believe in Islam, or was she just like, hey, the Prophet said it, Muhammad said this, so because I love him, I'll just follow him, right? What do you think? Anyone?
I think she didn't follow blindly. She herself has the clarity. She herself has the clarity why she can really follow the husband.
Uh-huh. Well, yeah.
Because but married to Prophet Rasul also, she also
Uh-huh.
had made sacrifice, materialistic and her material sacrifice. So I think they have like both of them actually at the same state of spiritual level. So that's why she has no problem to follow the husband.
Yeah, that's a good point. Obviously, having lived with the Prophet ﷺ and seeing, knowing what he spoke, this was probably not the first time they ever discussed this issue, right? So she saw the Prophet ﷺ and his spiritual level throughout her life, and they discussed these things, and they were both obviously not mushrikeen. Like Khadija was not a mushrika; she's like a muwahida, and even though they didn't know Islam yet, but in terms of like the aqidah that they had, they believed in one God. And there were a few people around in Mecca in that time who were not mushrikeen. They just believed in Millat Ibrahim. And they would consider themselves connected to Ibrahim, to the original message of one God, right? So, but indeed, as the sister also says in the chat, you can follow your husband as long as he's following truth, right? That's true. As long as the following is following in line with Islam, that's true. Sometimes even just for the sake of the relationship, right? And there was cases like, for example, can you marry someone accept Islam to marry someone, or just because your husband accepts? Let's say a husband accepts Islam and his wife accepts it just because her husband did to follow him. It's allowed. It's allowed Islamic. But let's say one guy is a Muslim and she wants to convert to Islam to marry him. Yes, it's allowed. And the ulama say that based on the hadith of Rasulullah about one of the Sahabis, they said that Islam will take over the heart, inshallah. So, yes, so the Messenger of Allah returned home and he said, Zamiluni, cover me, right? Cover me. Like, he was seeking that comfort. Okay, let's go down. And she did cover him until he was no more terrified. And he explained to her what happened, right? And he said, I fear that something might be happening to me. Now, look at the honesty of the Prophet ﷺ, subhanAllah, how amazing, the Prophet ﷺ is in his honesty. Like he recognized that this is what was happening. You know what I mean? So, and look at the response of Khadija radiallahu anha, right? What did she say? Never, by Allah, Allah will never disgrace you. You keep good relations with your kind and kin, with your kith and kin. You serve your guests generously. You help the poor and the destitute and assist the deserving and the calamity afflicted ones, right? So she knew exactly that if a man comes and says what he says, this man specifically, Muhammad Sallallahu having those qualities that he's saying the truth, that this is the truth. So it's a sign of awareness, wisdom, maturity, deep understanding of the situation. Also an expression of support, but indeed, that she knew, she believed, because she knew how honest he is, that this man would never lie. And the same thing, Abu Bakr, why is he called a Siddiq? Because هو صدق يعني صدق and صدق يعني يصدق Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم. He verified, he confirmed, he believed in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No need for, I don't know, show me the evidence. You understand? Aisha radiallahu anha narrates that the Prophet ﷺ was sitting down with Khadija, and he then saw a person between the heaven and the earth, and he told Khadija what he saw. She asked him to move closer. When he moved closer, she asked her if she still saw the person, and he answered in the affirmative. She then told him to put his head under her garment and asked him if he still saw him. He answered negative. She then told me, relax, this is an angel. Had he been the devil, he would not have been ashamed of looking at your wife. You're under the cover of a woman's garment. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Look at that. Look at that wisdom. Subhanallah. This is amazing. It's an amazing statement. Amazing wisdom. Okay? So, with decisive word and action, Khadija calmed the Prophet ﷺ down. The great love she had for him transformed into what is greater, which is believe in Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is just a beautiful, beautiful hadith here that we're hearing here. Look at the wisdom. And the angel would be, the devil would not be shy to look under the garment. The angel was, right? So one day the Prophet ﷺ returned home after Jibreel alayhi salam had taught him how to pray. And he informed her of this, and she said, just teach me how he taught you. And he taught her. She then performed the prayer, the salah, after ablution, after wudu, and prayed and said, I testify that you are really the messenger of Allah. Ibn Hajar says in his book, Risabah, this is the most correct narration I came about concerning her Islam. Right? So she testified her deen. Ibn Ishaq said Khadija was the first person to believe in Allah and His Messenger and believe in all that He brought. Allah reported His Messenger by that. Comforted, sorry. The Prophet ﷺ never heard any unpleasant thing from her whenever she talked to him. And this is a huge, huge thing. So important that he never heard. Did the Prophet ﷺ, when we look at his life, أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ, I am a human being like you. Now, he was obviously above us, but he's a human being. The Prophet ﷺ had, for example, Aisha radiallahu anha would talk back to him sometimes and say certain things. We know that from the hadith. Hafsa bint Umar would sometimes say stuff back and mouth to an extent to the Prophet ﷺ in a way. Radiallahu anha. But sometimes that's how it is. She's a woman. And the Prophet ﷺ did divorce her. He took her back after, but he did. Khadija never, ever, 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 ever said anything unpleasant. She's a woman. If the other women said, there must be something that upset them. Sometimes the Prophet ﷺ didn't get along with them. This is just the way it is. We know this. There's so many hadith, brothers and sisters, so many. We know so many details of the relation of the Prophet ﷺ with Aisha, and that sometimes they had fights. Sometimes she said stuff to upset him. Never Khadija. Never Khadija. And that's why he loved her so much. And that's why she was so loved him that even when she died, the other wives were jealous of her. Aisha, the young one, she was so jealous from Khadija radiallahu anha. Because of that, she knew how much the Prophet ﷺ loved her and how he missed her. Subhanallah, subhanallah, interesting enough. Uh, I had a dream one time about this, just recently, just last week, a few days ago, about Prophet ﷺ making dua for Khadija radiallahu anha. It was just a beautiful dream. Just now I remember when I'm reading this, that he was asking Allah, oh Allah, let me experience the companionship of Khadija one more time. SubhanAllah, I just remember now that I'm reading this. It's a beautiful dream. May Allah make it something good, as a good sign. So, yeah, Khadija was just, something that no one can come close to in terms of her behavior with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the ship of faith continuing, weathering to the storms and waves of age, of ignorance and darkness, while the Prophet ﷺ was directing with wisdom and patience. And, it's definitely they had ups and downs. There's all kinds of things. But Khadija was always by his side. And of course, she was rewarded in this dunya. Imagine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Jibreel alayhi salam to give him the good tidings of a home of pearls, of glass, of no loud noises in paradise. Right? And that Allah prepared for Khadija. Why? Just for being Khadija. Radiallahu, just for being that amazing wife. He says, where there will be no hardship or tiredness. Okay. Next, she invested all her wealth in the cause of Allah. Honestly, when people talk about like, oh, men have to just spend, women spend, women. Yeah, but look at this. She spent on on him, on a man. I'm not saying that women should provide for men. That's not what I'm saying. Because sometimes there's women who have good money from their fathers, inheritance, this and that, just like Khadija, but they are insisting on their husbands struggling, hardship, difficulty, because she wants to teach them a lesson. Well, you are the Qawam, so do your job. Okay? Even if the man is a good man. Oh, yeah. SubhanAllah, look at the Khadija. Yes, the duty of provision is the man. Duty. But the kindness of a woman can be where she was like Khadija. She really, and I like the word here that he used, the author. Beautiful word. Correct choice of word. She had invested, not spent, invested. Indeed, it is an investment because the reward is huge. And his da'wah, the da'wah of the Prophet ﷺ, this is fi sabilillah, was really huge because of the investment of Khadija. Okay? She spent without making any mention of what she spent, especially during the years of the sanction in the alley or valley of Abu Talib. You know, the incident, as you have studied the seerah, about 2 years and a half to 3 years, almost stuck in the desert, in the valley, boycotted by everyone, to not do any business or anything with Quraysh, anyone who is associated with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, anyone who was from Banu Hashim, even the non-Muslims, were pushed into that, subhanAllah. So it was something very different. But Khadija didn't come and say, look what I did for you, how dare you, look what a man you are, and this and that. No. Khadija was an amazing woman, okay? And that's why she received that mention. That's why she received that, you know, that special treatment. Yeah. Now, so she spared the Mistress Hassan the trouble of labor. Look at that. He worked for her, as we know at the beginning. But she wanted him to spend this time on da'wah, because she knew deeply his worth. Some men might abuse a woman's kindness and taking her money and misbehaving and trying to use this to leverage. Well, I'm the man, you should help me, this and that. Right now, Khadija, she knew. There was no doubt about the greatness and the goodness of the Prophet. There's no doubt. Right? She enriched him. She spared him the trouble of labor. Was he not a man because he did not work? No, he was the man. He was the man because the work he was doing for the sake of Allah, like everyone would look at him in awe. They knew that's huge work. They knew who he was. So all his occupation was calling to the way of Allah. And Allah is the one who did this through Khadija. Chapter 93, verse 8. وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Yeah, right? So Allah made himself sufficient. She was the tool. She showed kindness to him. She also showed kindness to the weak and the poor Muslims. She didn't say, oh, you're my husband, and okay, good, that's it. No, anyone that came, she, like, look at that heart. What kind of woman is that? SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. Ya Allah. Right? So she was very generous to everyone. She was called the mother of the believers, of the faithful. She's the first one in every sense. And as I said, Aisha was jealous, strongly jealous, because of the love that the Prophet and how frequently he spoke of her. And he nostalgically remembered her days with him and missed her. Okay? And yeah, she was older than her by a lot, but still she knew who's number one for the Prophet. So she said, the Messenger of Allah rarely went to the house, out of the house without mentioning Khadija and praising her, subhanAllah. One day he spoke of her and I grew very jealous and I told him, was she not an old lady whom Allah, look at the look at the sting, you know? So she was this old lady, okay, whom Allah has replaced for you with a better woman, meaning her, right? Look at, and she was mean. I know her, like she's Khadija and she's Aisha, but she was, obviously that's a mean statement to say about Khadija radiallahu anha, right? The Prophet got angry. He said, La wallahi. He said, La wallahi. Straight up told her, responded to her. Allah did not replace her with any better woman. Do you understand? He told her, sorry, close the argument. You know, you could say that you can lie to your wife and say, yeah, she's the best. The Prophet just said it as it was. He said, La wallahi. Allah did not replace her with any better woman, for she believed in me. Easy for Aisha or anyone else to believe now because more people believed in her, her father believed in everyone. It's easier. But when Khadija believed, she believed in me when people disbelieved. She consoled me with her wealth when people denied me their money. Look at Allah. And Allah blessed me with children from her while I was denied children by any other woman. Indeed. Aisha then said, and I said in my mind, never shall I speak unfavorably of her again. Right? It is what it is. It is what it is. This is how the Prophet ﷺ, but again, the question is why? Did he say because her beauty and she was so attractive and so beautiful and this and this? No. It was her character. I'm sure, I have no doubt that she was a beautiful woman, but she was more beautiful because of the way she behaved. And indeed, for my sisters who are listening, for a man, yes, we love beauty, but there's something that's most beautiful about a woman who has a soft character. And I know that a lot of times women, as soon as I say this, women be like, yeah, but men are bad, and men are this, and men. I'm not talking about bad men. I'm talking about just the woman itself. And when a woman has that soft, nurturing character, not an aggressive, masculine, screaming loud, laughing all the time type of behavior. That's for a man the most beautiful thing. When a woman has that haya and that support, and the man can feel that feminine energy that he can rely on. When that and she's showed, because women, they can say to a man, and they do say it a lot. In general, they use this word a lot, this statement. They will throw it around a lot. And you know it. I love you. I love you. I love you. But how can you know? They say I love you to their friends. I love you, baby. I love you, darling. I love you, honey. That's just your friend. They say I love you to everyone, to a lot of people. And they say it to their husband. The husband like, wait a second, does it really mean anything? But through the behavior of how she treats him, that's where the love was demonstrated with Khadija radiallahu anha. She demonstrated. She did those things for him. It wasn't just lip service, but I love you. But how do you prove your love? How can you prove your love to a man? Is honestly by giving him peace. The best way a woman can ever prove her love to a man is through peace, giving him peace, peace of mind. And for those people, for those feminists, for those women who are angry, who want men to just provide, yet when it comes to men having any authority over the woman, they're denied. They're called controlled narcissists, control freaks, manipulators, and whatnot. Look at Khadija. Look at Khadija and how she's financially supported the Prophet ﷺ. Look at her behavior. Look at how she didn't nag him, even though it was a tough time. Imagine, he put her in that situation where she had to basically spend all her money. She had to basically be boycotted. Her business was everything. Oh, when people come to counseling for me, women, they get angry because, the husband, did this or that for the smallest thing. Right? And Khadija was so patient because the man was the Prophet ﷺ, but he was a good man. She knew and she believed in him. Yes, there's some bad men out there. Yes, there's some losers out there. Yes. But we find today that even the good ones are suffering. So for a man, the most important thing is that patience, is that softness, is that, that just that feminine energy, that peace of mind that a woman can give, and no one can give a man a peace of mind like a woman does. A righteous, good woman. And that's why the Prophet said, الدنيا متاع وخير متاع امرأة صالحة. That this life is a pastime, it's enjoyment. And the best enjoyment is a really righteous woman who will not break your head, who will support you, who will love you, who will give you that feminine energy that the man is starving for. It's built in our subconscious. We need that. And it can become a weakness if we get it from the wrong woman, or a woman who's going to manipulate that against us. Because men will fall for it. Right? So, as you can see, Aisha was very different. Okay? Khadija, for women who want to be like Khadija, interesting, a lot when women try to say that she was a businesswoman, and it's used as a excuse for them to get out of the house and try to start their own businesses, mixing with men, meeting for lunches with non-mahrams, and in the name of establishing a business and being like Khadija. Khadija didn't do that. I already explained, I proved to you that she did not do that. And that's why it's such a big disservice to the ummah and to the name of Khadija when women use her as a scapegoat or as an excuse that they can do and go and push and shove and mix with men and do all kinds of things, which leads to so many problems. We're not going to get into it right now, especially in Malaysia, with women sometimes being very much in parallel with men in everything that they do. But when I say, okay, well, if you want to be like Khadija, then okay, spend from your money on your husband, invest in him, in his dawah, and hopefully he's a good man. He's, not some guy who smokes and doesn't pray and this and that. No. You want to be like Khadija? Okay, spend. Khadija did her business from her house. No problem for a woman to have a business. No problem for a woman to do that. But if you want to be like Khadija, then do what Khadija did. Don't use her name and pick only a few things from her life and justify certain behaviors. No. And I always say, okay, then spend on your husbands then, if you want to be like Khadija, right? They get upset, they get angry, they start saying I'm misogynist, chauvinist, and this and that. But I'm only quoting what happened, yani. This facts, right? Khadija was the woman. She was the model example of woman. The love, the pain, unconditional. If any woman loved a man unconditionally, other than the mother of Muhammad Sallallahu, because mothers just love their boys, the kids unconditionally. If any woman loved a man unconditionally, it was Khadija loving Muhammad Sallallahu unconditionally. That's something very rare, very, very, very rare for a woman to love. Because usually love is based on conditions, especially for a woman, right? Like if he has to provide, he has to take care of you, he has to pay the rent, he has to this, he has to that, he has to pay the mahar when you get married, he has to things that he has to do is conditions. These are conditions. Honestly, there's conditions. So this is the way it is, this is life. Khadija came out of the alley of Abu Talib, physically weakened. She was sick because she spent her money. There was no food. She was feeding everyone. She was sick. She got sick. And she became sick, and her beloved husband and daughters cared for her, consoled her, was there, alleviated her suffering for the best of their ability. But Allah decided to take her. She died because of what happened, because of the boycott, because she was so weak due to the boycott. Brothers and sisters, understand she sacrificed herself, her life, for the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, Mawiduna fil Jannah. Mawiduna fil Jannah. Our appointment, our date, not at some fancy schmancy restaurant, not I don't know where, in Jannah. Okay, in Jannah. And the Prophet ﷺ, that's when you see how much he loved her. And she died. He was Amal Huzn. He suffered so much. Khawla bin Hakim asked the Prophet ﷺ, Messenger of Allah, it seems you have been afflicted by what? By one since the death of Khadija. Prophet ﷺ replied, yes, she was the mother of the household and the caretaker for the family. Look at that. Giving. He didn't just say, oh, I just loved her so much. No. She did stuff. He missed her because there was something that she was just doing. Like, that's how a man sees the way a woman proves her love for him. Okay? Her love for him. It is what it is. That's how men's brains work. Okay? And he loved her, no doubt. But she also proved her love to him. She loved him. And he missed that. He missed that so much. Not just because the emotions, but what she did for him, who she was for him, the strong support that she was for him, right? And it's left such a huge gap in his life. As we said that even after many years, he would mention her to the point that the other wives would get jealous. Okay? So, obviously, the daughters of the Prophet ﷺ were the daughters of Khadija. So, Fatima is the daughter of Khadija. You know that. Kulthum, daughter of Khadija, Ruqayya, the daughter of Khadija, Zainab, the daughter of Khadija. Okay? All the daughters of the Prophet ﷺ were from Khadija radiallahu anha. You understand? Fatima yani. Bint Muhammad is Fatima bint Khadija. Okay? Imagine that those girls would remind the Prophet ﷺ of Khadija all the time. They probably even looked like her. Subhanallah, I can only imagine. Allahu Akbar. Yeah. So let's move down. This is how Khadija was to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And only after she died did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, later did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered other women in his life. And Allahu Alam, it might be that even though he could have married right away, he could have had multiple wives. Maybe it was just the love of Khadija was just, maybe that woman was just enough for him. Allahu Alam. Okay, Allahu Alam. Yes, men are by nature polygamous, but maybe sometimes a real, strong, good, amazing woman just does it. Wallahu Alam. Okay, so Sauda and Aisha entered life of the Prophet after the death of Khadija. And here, the Prophet ﷺ never had another wife for almost 2 decades in which he was married to Khadija, right? So even before he was commissioned as a prophet, right? So, but when he did die, he left behind 10 wives who are the mothers of believers, okay? That we need to understand, okay? So before marrying Sauda and Aisha, this, the author says that attention needs to be paid to Khawla bint Hakim, a woman whose deep faith and strong love for the Prophet ﷺ spurred her into interfering in the Prophet's private life. Okay. Now, from what I know, she was not related to him, but she was the wife of Uthman ibn Mat'un. And these were some of the first people to embrace Islam. Okay. So Khawla, she was married to Uthman. Okay. She was the one who asked the Prophet ﷺ and said this to the Prophet ﷺ and mentioned to the Prophet ﷺ that he should get married. And you will see that Sauda and Aisha were married within a very short time of each other, and very two different extremes. Okay, let's move down. And Khawla saw the signs of the sorrow of the Prophet ﷺ on his face. Okay. And she was the bravest of all the females and anyone to go and talk to him. So told him that, it seems like he's been affected by the death of Khadija, obviously. You could see that if a woman can read it off your face that you're so deeply affected, right? So deeply affected that it could be read on his face, which means his love was so deep for her that it's almost like a trauma that the Prophet ﷺ experienced, right? So Khawla used her maturity and her foresightness and her deep faith to pursue and talk and understand and help the Prophet ﷺ basically marry. So she suggested marriage to the Prophet ﷺ. Say, if you like, you can marry a matron, and if you like, you can marry a virgin, O Messenger of Allah. A matron means a previously married one. So he asked her of the matron and the virgin, and she replied that the matron is Sauda bint Zama, and the virgin is Aisha bint Abi Bakr. Right? So perhaps Khawla suggested Sauda, who was mature, because of the daughters that the Prophet ﷺ had. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ needed someone to take care and help with that. And there's nothing wrong with that, of course. So Sauda would be perfect. Let's go down. Right? So Aisha was young, very young. She was virgin, so she could be like his heart could be mended by her. by her beauty and her relationship also with Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. He'll be very happy. So the Prophet ﷺ told Khawla, mention me to them. So Khawla started and was successful in both proposals. So the Prophet ﷺ married Sauda and consummated her marriage, but Aisha was engaged to him because she was too young for consummation, right? So Sauda entered the Prophet ﷺ as one of the mothers of the faithful. She was much, much older than the Prophet ﷺ, according to most narrations. Let's go down. She was a widow, and she started taking care of Kulthum and Fatima and managing the affairs of the Prophet ﷺ's household. She was dark in complexion, slow and a bit fat. And here we can see something important, because Prophet ﷺ married her, consummated the marriage, meaning he was intimate with her. But she was a beautiful woman. And we can see her, like, she was dark, she was black. Basically, Sauda means black, actually. Even the name is black, right? So the Prophet ﷺ did not, oh, I want this beauty or this and that, super, all kinds of, and yeah, it's important for a man also, but he didn't care about that. He cared about who she was, what she can do for him, and that she was a great believer and had a clean heart. And even though she was a bit slow and fat, she was very humorous and funny, and she really helped the Prophet ﷺ. She was very, very much so supportive. A very interesting character. And actually, she was very close to Aisha radiallahu anha. Maybe because they got married at the same time. Sauda always preferred Aisha and always treated Aisha almost like a daughter, to the point that she gave her nights to Aisha radiallahu anha. Okay? It reported that the Prophet ﷺ, she saw the Prophet ﷺ one night, palelessness and distress, and she told him jokingly, O Messenger of Allah, I prayed behind you yesterday and you prolonged the prostration so long that I felt like having a nosebleed. So the Prophet ﷺ launched into laughter and his molars were visible and his gloomy look disappeared. So she was very sometimes like fat women, they're jolly. They're very happy. They don't care. Oh my God, do I look fat? Am I skinny? Am I look pretty? Am I this and that? They sometimes just they're just happy. They just whatever, embrace who they are. I'm not like you have to be fat, overweight, but just sometimes they're jolly. They're just, I don't know. They're not so always obsessed about their weight. So she, was very good with the Prophet ﷺ, with his life, and it was a great position that she saw. And Prophet ﷺ was happy with her. But Sauda started feeling that she was becoming a liability. Like she started feeling, because now the Prophet married other wives, more beautiful, more young. So naturally, she would feel somehow. Maybe, again, the Prophet is a man, right? He's a human being, even though he's fair and all that. But, feelings are feelings. Human beings are human beings. The Prophet, if you would have come in as an angel, as perfect, then we would never know how to live our lives. We'd never know how to deal with things. So the Prophet, obviously, maybe she felt not given enough attention, that she was competing, start feeling insecure. Right? She start feeling insecure, like she's a liability, like it's hard for the Prophet ﷺ to share the nights. Obviously, a woman can read a man's feelings and emotions. So she gave up her night to the Prophet ﷺ because she felt maybe now with all this competition, maybe the Prophet ﷺ was going to divorce her. She actually felt that. Okay? So she willingly stayed as his wife and gave up her night. And indeed, and you have to understand also as a man, like she was very old and maybe not, I don't know, at some time, after some point, a man is a man. It's the reality. Some people be like, yeah, but he's a prophet. He should have just been. Yeah, the prophet, he is ana basharun mithlukum. I am a man like you. People try to sometimes make the Prophet some angel and some saint and some this. The Prophet was a man. He would have feelings, emotions. He got angry. He got this and that, whatever, and this is life. And yeah, it was probably not easy for him to be with her intimately when she was, as she was aging. Some put her age at 62, 65. So even though the Prophet took her and, has been into it, after some time and some age, it was probably not easy for him to get attracted to her. And he didn't want to hurt her. But this was I think the best thing that ever came out of it was this. And she stayed his wife and always support him. And she was, and he loved her, right? She was a very, very strong and pious worshiper. She was very generous as well, as Aisha radiallahu anha described. And Aisha loved her actually, right? And she was blessed with longevity, and she lived into the caliphate of Umar Khattab. She died only after the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, so she died only after Abu Bakr during the reign of Umar radiallahu anhu. A beautiful woman, beautiful character. She left a very deep impact on the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ benefited from her kindness and her generosity and her femininity. And yeah, it was amazing. The daughters of the Prophet ﷺ benefited. And she was just very, very amazing woman, right? Now look in Aisha radiallahu anha, her personality was interesting. Her mother was Ruman. Ruman played a role in the life of Prophet ﷺ, who is the husband of her daughter and the intimate friend of her husband, and which is Abu Bakr. So Abu Bakr Siddiq was the Prophet's friend, best friend, his shade, his man, his right hand. He never left him. He supported him with his money, with himself, with everything. He was so generous. He spent so much. He spent all his money in the path of Allah, no matter what. And he brought so much. Him and Khadija radiallahu anha, I would say they spent, and Uthman, for the dawah, for the sake of Allah, the most. Okay? And his house was a place that the Messenger of Allah would always visit every day. Every day. And she would receive him with courteous manner, welcome him. Okay, so she was the mother-in-law. And you know how mother-in-law are. They're not easy sometimes, right? And she did everything for him. And Ruman was formerly married to Al-Harith bin Abdullah Al-Azdi, who brought her from Sarah to Mecca. Her former husband entered into alliance with Abu Bakr, but he died soon after. So Abu Bakr married her as a sign of respect for her alliance and his friendship and so on. So she was previously married. And she had 2 children by him, and it was Abdurrahman and Aisha. Okay? Abu Bakr had 2 other children from his other wife, and this is Abdullah and Asma. And then there's also Muhammad later on. We knew Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. We read about him in one of our previous courses. But no need to go there now. Anyway, we'll stop here now. Inshallah, next time we'll continue with Aisha radiallahu anha. A lot to talk about. Bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you. Jazakumullah khair. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.